If you thought 2014 couldn't be topped for social justice warrior insanity, 2015 is when SJWs and the regressive left went full retard. Here's the top 5 SJW Libtard Fails of the past year. At number 5, it's the collapse of the body positivity movement, exemplified no better than the protein world farce. Basically, in 2015, what's left of sane society rejected the argument that fat, ugly, obnoxious land whales were in any way desirable, attractive, or healthy. Fat pride militants enjoyed weeks of positive press coverage during their campaign of vandalism, harassment, and even bomb threats directed at Protein World. All because the company dared to use a thin and healthy model for their beach body ready advertisement. But Protein World did the unthinkable. They refused to bow to mob intimidation. They refused to apologize. The result? This relatively small company made well over $1 million in 4 days just from all the free publicity. They then unveiled an identical skyscraper-sized beach body-ready billboard in New York City. The fat acceptance movement was dealt a huge blow. And 2015 marked the year when this was soundly and rightly rejected for precisely what it is. Dangerously unhealthy, gross, and something that should not be promoted as a positive lifestyle choice. At number 4, it's the meltdown of the Black Lives Matter movement, exemplified no better than the Shaun King fiasco. Along with D-Ray, King was the de facto leader of BLM, but his crown slipped when it was revealed that King, despite his denials, had almost certainly lied about being black. This triggered a meltdown of epic proportions. King later shut down his Justice Together organization, with participants and donors demanding to know where their money had gone. The whole episode ended in ignominy when King was thrown under a bus by D-Ray and several other prominent BLM activists. They branded him a liar, with accusations of financial fraud and mismanaged funds flying everywhere. And King's dramatic fall from grace characterized a bad year in general for Black Lives Matter. This was best illustrated by 2 BLM activists being booed even by far-left supporters of Bernie Sanders when they hijacked his platform. Starbucks' Race Together initiative also ended in disaster, with a huge backlash forcing the company to cut short its ridiculous race-shaming campaign. At number 3, it's got to be Rachel Dolezal, Spokane president of the NAACP, who lied about having a fake black dad to cover for the fact that her alleged African-American roots were in reality just a permatan and a bad weave.
Are you African American? Are your parents, are they white?
Like Shaun King, Rachel Dolezal was born whiter than a milk bottle in a snowstorm. And despite the fact that her duplicity quickly imploded into a public relations embarrassment, huge numbers of progressives rallied behind her, because admitting that she was a fraud who had exploited grievance culture to cheat actual African Americans out of educational and employment positions would bring the whole house of cards down. Dolezal perfectly encapsulated the commonly shared SJW mental disorder, which holds that basic biological science is trumped by feelings and transitory social constructs. It isn't. You can claim you're beautiful when you're obese. You can identify as transracial. You can identify as trans species. You can identify as Barney the Purple Dinosaur. That doesn't make it so. At number 2, it's the Mizzou protests and the wave of temper tantrums over absolutely nothing that swept colleges across the country. Triggered by the brutal oppression represented by dubious poop swastikas and offensive Halloween costumes, special snowflakes nationwide revolted en masse.
It is not about creating an intellectual space! It is not! Do you understand that?
But they were enabled by their limp-wristed libtard professors and administrators, who allowed the inmates to run the asylum and sacrifice their careers on the altar of white privilege. However, any legitimacy behind the protests disintegrated when Professor Melissa Click was caught on tape calling for muscle to silence members of the press attempting to cover the story.
You need to get out.
No, I don't.
You need to get out.
I actually don't.
All right. Hey, who wants to help me get this reporter out of here? I need some muscle over here.
The vulgar authoritarianism which Crybaby Click exhibited in her zeal to strangle free speech perfectly illustrated how the regressive left operates and why more real liberals than ever before are speaking out against it. The whole issue also served to underscore the absurdity of educational institutions, which are supposed to be hotbeds of debate and dissent, eradicating free speech in favour of safe spaces, trigger warnings, and censorship. The wave of university tantrums was abruptly ended by the Paris massacre, with SJWs complaining that the suffering of actual victims had taken media attention away from their baseless, butthurt whining. But college crybabies weren't finished. Before the end of the year, they signed petitions to ban the song White Christmas because it's racist, as well as a petition to eliminate the First Amendment entirely. But 2015's biggest libtard fail of the year has to be Caitlyn Jenner. Progressives hailed Bruce's transformation into Caitlyn as a huge victory for transgender rights. Gushing media coverage ensured that anyone who failed to worship at the feet of the goddess Caitlyn Jenner was swiftly denounced as a thought criminal and a bigot.
What did he say?
You'll have to excuse my language. I don't think Caitlyn Jenner is a hero.
Pundits who threatened to commit the modern equivalent of blasphemy by misgendering someone were even threatened with physical violence.
You cut that out now, or you'll go home in an ambulance.
ESPN even gave Jenner a Courage Award, shunning a 19-year-old woman who battled inoperable brain cancer to raise over $1 million for charity. But the contrived euphoria quickly evaporated. It later emerged that Jenner's people had done a dirty deal with Disney-owned ESPN to secure the Courage Award in return for Jenner doing an exclusive interview with Disney-owned ABC. The whole spectacle was a public relations stunt to further the Kardashian empire and had virtually nothing to do with transgender rights.
Buckle up, buckaroo!
And Jenner subsequently faced protests from transgender people who said that she did not represent them. This preceded the last great transgender fail of the year, which came in the form of Stephanie Walsh, who attracted media attention after abandoning his wife and 7 children to become a 6-year-old girl.
I have a mummy and daddy, adopted mummy and daddy, who are totally comfortable with me being a little girl.
An individual so reprehensible that even the most ardent social justice warriors refused to leap to his defense. So there you have it, that's the top 5 libtard fails for 2015. Honourable mentions go to feminist jazz hands, the ban Trump position, and Salon.com giving a platform to a wannabe child molester. It was a year in which wider segments of society finally began to recognise the threat posed by the regressive left, with cultural libertarianism on the rise. So what are your top SJW fails for the year 2015? Let me know in the comments below. And subscribe to the channel, because if you thought 2015 represented full retard for SJWs and the regressive left, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Well,